Good afternoon,
Still
everyone.
coming in.
All coming in.
Give it a minute or so more, Jack. People are still just coming in. Get going at 31 just as numbers are going up. Yeah. Should we get going then, Jack?
Yeah, go for it.
Cool. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Elevating Value webinar hosted by Brookbanks Development Management Team. Sorry, someone's just interrupted me as we're going along that. I'm Fran Walker, Senior Associate Director, and joining me today is Jack Lynch, our Planning Manager, who is the man that keeps us all in line, really.
Well, I don't know about that, but thanks, Fran. So we are representatives of the development management team in Brookbanks. So largely, our role involves taking a scheme from what could be a sketch on a piece of paper straight through to delivery and development. So within our team, we have a wealth of experience in dealing with local planning authorities, promoters, house builders, and I think you'd agree, Fran, that there's plenty of challenges that you would face along the way with these developments.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we're talking about today. So we're talking about tackling those barriers to smooth project delivery and how we can go beyond your typical vanilla project management approach. We'll be sharing practical ways to bring value, backed up the real examples from major residential schemes that we're involved in across the UK. So just to kick us off, a bit about our development management team. So we can pretty much get involved at any stage of the project, whether that be right at the beginning, we've inherited projects off other teams, or we can get involved right at the end. And also any projects. We will mention a lot today about residential large schemes, but actually we can get involved in SOL schemes, SOL 278, local centres, just planning work, you name it, we can get involved in that. We are essentially the glue that connects all the other Brookbanks departments together. So whether that be working with the civil engineers, the cost commercial, M&E, LDC, and structures. So when we work together, we help pull and drive all the teams to meet the client strategic goals. For example, Sherford Newtown, which you will hear us mention a lot, we work as the full Brookbanks package there. We're delivering service partials by managing both the social and the physical infrastructure. On quite a lot of our big projects, not just Sherford, we work for consortiums. So often we have to balance different client priorities. So you might, for instance, get a land promoter wanting to sell their service parcels straight away. And then you might have different house builders on a scheme that have different strategic goals. For instance, they might have a really fast build sell rate, or another one might be having a different project, so their sales rate is slower. So it's all about prioritizing the client's needs, meeting them, and going in the right strategic direction for them. At the end of the day, our services are completely tailored to what our clients need. So whether that be the full cradle to grave service, so right from the planning and looking at a field to adoption, or as I said, just the sole project, whether that be specifically helping out on 278s, local centres, or planning.
So ultimately, a link to everything that Fran's just said, what we try and do at Brookbanks is elevate value. And that's what this webinar is about. What we want to show is how we elevate value for our clients. Well, the ways in which we do it, but also some tactics that we suppose we have to try and maximize that value. And that's in a couple of ways. So one way is financially. So how can we save costs as best we can for the clients? And obviously on screen, you'll see that's the total amount of value that we've saved for clients. And that's solely as a development management team this year to date, being at 21 million, which we're really, really proud of. But another way in which we can elevate value for clients that we largely target is through time. Obviously in this industry, time is money. And if there's any way that we can save any time for clients, it's really, really beneficial. So just to rhyme off a couple of examples that we're really, really proud of this year from in terms of how we've elevated value for clients. one specific example from a major residential development that we have in the southwest of England. We were able to save a client £20,000 on the cost of materials for head walls that was going to be used on site. Ultimately, how we did that was through negotiation with the local planning authority, not necessarily as a bargaining, but rather to help all parties understand why it wouldn't necessarily be a need for the materials in that area. Visually, it wasn't a detrimental impact to the design of the locality, and ultimately the proposal still served its purpose. Another example is we've been able to save over £100,000 this year on technical costs that have been put forward for our clients to complete general technical matters on site. And really that's just through understanding those fees that come through and being able to ensure that what's being proposed is actually proportionate to what's required on site for that actual purpose. So it's not, essentially, we just want to make sure that what is required from the client is done. And we're able to do that through the analysis of those fees. And one that we're really proud of, quite a large fee, was we were able to save a client in central England it was a major residential development, just over 460,000 for a DLL for great crested newts. And the way in which we were able to do that was by meeting with Natural England directly and being able to highlight updated data sets that justified a reduction in the fee that we initially were faced with, which obviously was a really nice email to wake up to for the client. Is there any you would like to throw in, Fran, just before we move on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think obviously monetary reasons for value elevation is a fantastic one, but actually one thing that we also need to consider is placemaking. So a lot of our clients, a lot of residential schemes, they want to leave and be really proud of their schemes. There's nothing worse than leaving a site and having a bitter taste with the local community. On a scheme we're currently working on, we're currently going through a deed of variation on the Section 106. And as a result, we're having to negotiate on payments for local community facilities. And we have successfully negotiated a payment regarding the community facility and the indexation for that. Now, that was a really positive conversation for our clients because the indexation was to what they believed. But actually, more importantly, we have come to an agreement with the local community that they actually have the amount of money needed to be able to build out their local community facilities and not be out of pocket. So from a benefit from the value for the clients, actually, yes, they've got a bit of a saving from a monetary purpose, but actually they've built up that relationship with the local community again so that they can leave that site and they have delivered the community facilities. So again, not always monetary reasons for value elevation. It's a bit of a bigger picture, especially with these large, big schemes. It's actually how you leave the community and having that really good relationship with all the stakeholders involved.
So moving on, what we're going to do here is just, I suppose, referring back to those examples that we've just given, we're going to break down the development cycle from a very, very high level into 4 different sections. And we're just going to essentially break down and really focus on areas that we would focus on within Brookbanks as ways that we can elevate value throughout the development cycle. This isn't something that just happens in the middle of it. Really, from the absolute outset, we are trying to find value for our clients. And ultimately, what we would really love from today is that everyone could leave with a question, maybe not necessarily an answer. Hopefully maybe some answers, but that you could leave with a question that you might be able to ask yourself about a development that you're maybe working on, or something that you're aware of within your scheme in terms of how you could challenge that and how you could improve it. And ultimately, before I get into the sections here, at Brookbanks and specifically within the development management team, we don't have the magic potion here to be able to completely streamline development and get through it at record time. I think if we did, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. I'd probably be on a beach somewhere. But what we like to think we do have is a lot of good ingredients to try and contribute to that and to try and find the best value for clients. And ultimately that comes from our experience. And I say our, not being just me and Fran, but the wider team. Within the development management team, we have an eclectic mix of people on that team from different backgrounds, be that house builders, developers, promoters, local planning authority, but also a different background such as finance, education, all of which is really beneficial to trying to find those little nuggets of value elevation throughout the development cycle. But ultimately, we do also really, really appreciate and benefit from the multidisciplinary nature of Brookbanks. We're really lucky to work across the desk from really skilled people in their own field, be that the commercial elements of the business or engineering, which is really, really important and really helpful to help us elevate value throughout the development cycle. So just getting stuck in then, I'm just going to start on the initial stage, which would be site identification and due diligence, and really focusing on that due diligence stage at the initial stages of a project. Oftentimes, whenever we join projects or join developments, usually, in many cases, it would already have outline plan and permission. So it may be the basic questions that you ask at that stage. Is it an allocated site? What are the known risks that are around there? Is there an issue with drainage? Is there a concern with regards to heritage assets nearby that may cause risks in the future? But what we like to try and do is dive a little bit deeper and actually understand how can we elevate value from an early stage. So just going through on this third bullet here, one may be, is that outline plan and permission, is it appropriate? Oftentimes, because of sometimes the time that it takes for a planning application to go through an outline stage, it may be that reserve matters are actually being submitted maybe 5 years potentially after an outline permission has been approved. Sorry, not approved, maybe initially commenced. So are the conditions that have been attached actually still appropriate? Are the Section 106 obligations that are in a Section 106 agreement alongside that permission, are they still appropriate? And that's not necessarily just saving money for the client, but it's also to benefit all parties. It's to benefit the people in that area and to benefit the local planning authority and what they wish to do as well. If there maybe is ways that we can maybe redistribute Section 106 financial contributions to different areas, this is the time whenever we would try and identify that through a bit of research within that area. Other things that we would look at in an early stage would be technical elements. Are there ways that we could maybe challenge ecological strategies that have been put in place with an outline permission? Are there ways that we could challenge or maybe suggest an alternate earthwork strategy with the assistance from our multi-disc teams? Are there ways that we can make this site better from the outset, or just an alternate option that may save money but save time and may make it may be potentially a little bit more difficult from the outset. However, will that make life a little bit easier in 5 to 10 years and further down the line, so that eventually it will make things, as I said, a little bit easier? And just moving on to the last two then, phasing. Is the phasing strategy in place actually the most beneficial from a value perspective? Oftentimes the phasing strategies that are put in place with large residential developments can often be linked to sites that have an existing access on site, and it's potentially the easiest way to get on site. However, might there actually be a way of alternating that phasing strategy so that we're actually building out maybe typologies of units that actually are more likely to sell a lot faster, which will improve obviously cash flow for our clients in the future? And then lastly, can we forecast changes? Is there a local plan review that's taking place that may impact the status of that site in the future? Are there SPDs that are coming forward that may cause challenges in the future that may want you to consider your plan and strategy moving forward? And may there be funding projects coming forward so that we could actually integrate those into the development so that would improve sales in the future? These are all things that we like to think about at an early stage so that we really can enhance value as best as we can for the remainder of the project. Just using a specific project that we've dealt with this year, it was down in Brentwood, named Dunton Hills. So we completed an extensive due diligence exercise for this development. Ultimately, we were able to find ways in which we could elevate value. That was through an alternate earthwork strategy. We were able to identify an alternate outfall for a file drainage strategy. And we were also able to challenge the ecological methods that were put forward in the outline permission, all of which elevated value for the client. Now, that client in this case didn't go with all of those, but ultimately what it did was it gave them satisfaction that they could move forward with their land acquisition, and they had comfort that they were able to achieve value long term and moving forward with the project, which obviously is really great from our perspective, getting that comfort through from our clients and moving forward. So moving on to planning, I would deal with this a lot in Brookbanks. Within Brookbanks, we deal with it in many different forms. That may be through promotion, supporting clients through that, through the general process and the submission, monitoring and determination and post-determination of planning applications, and through EIA coordination as well. And for those of you here on this call, I'm sure many of you will be aware of the issues with planning at the minute, and largely that comes down to time. And that's what I'm going to focus on specifically for the purposes of this, the actual planning process. Unfortunately, at the minute, there is a high percentage of planning applications, that's major planning applications, that aren't determined within the 13-week period. I believe it's somewhere between 70 and 80% of applications aren't. So what we try to do to elevate value or to highlight where we can improve areas for the client is, number one, setting a realistic program. I say realistic because if there are only 20% of major planning applications that are getting approved within 13 weeks, it's probably not the best idea to set 13 weeks as your program for the submission and approval of a planning application. However, following that and taking that into consideration, this is where we then can try and target areas where we can improve this, where we can try and reduce this. So if it may be the 30 weeks that's programmed, depending on what the requirements are from that LPA, how can we start to narrow that down? So there's a couple of ways. One is understand what's required from a validation perspective. Now, many people will be able to go look at a validation checklist and understand what they require depending on what your proposal is. However, do we actually understand what's required from the consultees that will be assessing these things? Oftentimes, if you actually do a bit of analysis on previous similar applications that have went in and understand what these consultees are actually requesting following that submission, it can really give you an indication as to what you're going to have to submit. It's not always as clear within the local validation checklist. So really it's important to be able to identify these indicators early so that they can be prepared prior to the submission of an application, because often it's the back and forth between the LPA and in some cases external consultees involved that can cause those additional delays. So that's a way that we can get that down. Another way is stakeholder engagement. How can we use stakeholder engagement effectively to try and streamline this? Do you have a good relationship with the local planning authority? Do you have a good relationship with the public? Are the public aware of what's coming in? Even if that's solely a scoping opinion, for example, are the public aware of that? Is the council aware of that? It's about having these conversations to try and make life a little bit easier from the forefront. And stakeholder engagement is important throughout the planning application process, in that it may actually assist to build a really positive relationship to help negotiate schemes in the future, or in the future of that process. So just referring back to the example that we used at the start and saving the £20,000 for head walls, we had a really, really positive relationship with the local planning authority and a very transparent relationship. And we're able to discuss our reasons for requesting that we could reduce certain materials, and ultimately that led to a positive outcome for the client. So it's really, really important to be able to understand where, even though it's quite a difficult avenue to go through at the minute from a timing perspective, where are the small areas of wins that we can really target to get positive outcomes within this process. So just moving on to land purchase and disposal with Fran.
Yeah, so after the lovely planning parts things happen, often we get to the point where we actually may want to buy a site, or in some instances dispose of a site. So as Jack mentioned, often we support clients through the land purchase scheme. So we have recently done that with master developer Greycoat in 2024, where they successfully purchased Bourne Airfield Development in Cambridgeshire. This is a really exciting new community of 3,500 homes, complete with schools, parks, local amenities, local infrastructure. Our team to be able to get them to that position, drew on the expertise from across the Brookbanks business to provide clear strategic overview of the scheme to support acquisition. And now, as a result of that, we're now closely working with the developer as a whole Brookbanks surface to deliver that scheme. From the land disposal point, so lots of different clients deal in lots of different ways. Again, we have strong connections with house builders, land promoters, and we like to partner with and find the right person for the development, whether that be getting the most competitive price, making sure that the right people are there, and not just for house builder sales, it's also making sure you've got the right partner for building out local centres, building out schools, if that is something needing to be. So we draw in on our wide expertise across the business, not just in the DM team, to make sure that we can bring in the right partners for the right clients. It's questioning and knowing your values and your stakeholder engagement on the scheme. Onto the project implementation side. So right at the start of the webinar, we mentioned that we want to be more than just your vanilla project management service. And one of the ways we prove this is actually how we set up a project. At the very beginning of a project, we like to pull together a business plan or a project execution plan to make sure that everyone's on the same page. More importantly, we understand your strategic goals as well as you know what we want to do. Once that's agreed, we firm up roles, responsibilities, reporting procedures, etc. We've now taken that one step further. So we've now taken things and we have created a client-facing project platform known to us as Asana, as many people on this call will be aware of. That is an all-in-one system that brings together tasks, tracking progress, keeping everything organised in one place. Each project is structured according to what its needs are. So it might be on a phase-by-phase basis. Offsite 278 works, parcel 1, parcel 2, school, you name it. It allows clear visibility for all tasks from a client's point of view. So clients can access that, external consultants can access that, Brookbanks team can access that. And it provides live updates so you can keep track of it. The great thing as well, it also provides a key program. So you have a master Gantt chart created out of this. So rather than having hundreds of different programs and lots of different Excel spreadsheets that we have to update formally every week, this actually provides one clear reporting procedure. So the real benefit to us and to what we like to think the clients is clear visibility, knowing that you can drop in and just see what the most up-to-date is. And there's no surprises, less emails, which is always a massive win. And even on the biggest projects, it can be broken down to really simple phases as well. So we've onto the project delivery then. So we use that system to help smooth the process out. We are not changing anything. The norms of a project will stay the same probably for the next 100 years. We like to be there as the smooth the process out, provide key reporting information and provide a clear visibility for all clients. So on to the last slide then, Jack.
Yeah, so just to finalize here, what we really, I suppose, would want for the listeners today, just to leave with is, it'd be great, as I said at the start, if you left with an answer, that would be great. But ultimately, it's about asking questions, because that's what we do on a daily basis. We ask questions of the work that we do, of things that we're faced within a development, of the nature of a development. And ultimately, those questions are to elevate value for the client, elevate value for the development as a whole. Can we make that development better? So things to maybe leave with today, that you could take back to your own things that you're working on, is what ingredients does your team have that would help you elevate a scheme? How can you utilize your departments to make developments more valuable? What things can you do to make that happen? Have you actually investigated the development site from a value elevation perspective? In many cases with the due diligence exercise, we're able to identify the risks that are on site and maybe potential mitigation. However, have you investigated it to increase the value? How can you increase the value of your site? How can you actually ensure that development may take place faster or at improved speed, or from a cost perspective as well. Moving to the last three then, what's your strategy? How can you be one of the planning applications outside the 80%, 70%, and that being, can it actually be within 13 weeks? And obviously, that being the case, really streamline your planning process. Even if it just saves a day, what can you do to try and speed up that planning process? Has your due diligence exercise provided comfort for your client in moving forward with a land acquisition? Will they move forward with comfort that the future of that development will be viable, and that the future of that development will be successful? And lastly, how can you bring it all together? What can you do that's innovative, that will actually bring stakeholders together, that will bring the client closer with anyone who's contributing to the development, which will ultimately, again, lead to a more successful and streamlined process through to whatever the outcomes of that development may be that delivery, be that adoption, or be that something much smaller. It would be great if after this webinar you could leave with some of those questions in terms of how you could improve the outcomes of your development. So obviously it would be great if we could speak to you all in a little bit more time. It's very difficult to try and convey the things that we do on a daily basis within the development cycle in 30 minutes. So I'm very conscious that we've only touched on this from a very high level. What we've done is we've put our emails here. If anyone would like to contact us directly and get in touch to have a conversation. But aside from that, thanks to everyone for attending and listening. And just as an opportunity now for if anyone would like to ask any questions, we'd be happy to have a go at those.
I've got one question here by the looks of it. So the first question that we've got is, how do you deal with the different strategic goals that clients might have on a scheme and when building out infrastructure? So something that we actually come across loads in this situation, as I mentioned earlier in the slide, you might have a developer that is fast rate of sales, they want to build really fast, and you might then have another developer on a consortium site that builds at a slightly slower pace given their project. So how we deal with that is actually really getting to know our clients at the very start and making sure when we're setting out the partitioning of sites that is aligned to having infrastructure delivered to the areas they need. Now, it isn't always perfect. You might have some clients wanting to build one end of the site because that suits their needs better, and others building the other. So it's a real balance between understanding cash flows, what people can afford, what people do want to outlay, and then actually negotiating with them in monthly consortium meetings to understand this is what you want at this time, fully aware that actually sometimes, yes, we can build this now, but we need to come to a compromise because as a collective and as a team, that goal is not possible. So yeah, thank you for that question. I think there might be another question just popped up as well in the chat. Sorry, it's just come here. So Tony, you mentioned heritage assets as a risk. Do you have any heritage specialists as part of your multidisciplinary team, or do you work with external consultants to ensure due diligence is conducted religiously regarding heritage assets? So thank you for that. So we don't actually have any in-house. We have lots of experience working with other people. So what we do when we partner and we work on with our clients, we choose the right people and heritage consultants that we'd go to, yes. There any other questions? No? Brilliant. Well, thank you everyone for your time. As Jack mentioned, if you do have any further questions, please do drop myself or Jack an email, as we'll be delighted to help out and answer for you. Thank you very much.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.